Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is reconcile. Let's take a look at some of the definitions for this verb. The first way you might hear the verb reconcile used is to mean to restore friendly relationships between two people or groups. Most people, when they hear this verb, think of couples. And this could be married couples or people who are dating that maybe break up or separate, and then they get back together. So this is the perfect verb to describe that. They're restoring their friendly relationship. A second way to use the verb reconcile is to mean to check a financial account against another for accuracy. So if you work in accounting or finance, this might be a verb you hear often. A third way we can use the verb reconcile is to mean to settle a disagreement. Again, this meaning sort of connects back to the first about restoring relationships. So you might hear about two groups of people reconciling their differences or their different beliefs, and then settling that disagreement. A fourth way you might hear the verb reconcile used is to mean to make someone accept something that is unwelcome or unpleasant. When you hear this usage, it's likely that you're going to hear a reflexive pronoun used after it, right? Those are words like myself, yourself, herself, himself, etc. And I was thinking about this particular meaning, and I feel like this is something I have been doing, right? So we have this ongoing pandemic, and we have heard that it's likely going to continue to get worse. It's going to be flu season, right? So for many people, including myself, I don't plan to travel during the holiday season. And that's kind of unpleasant, right? Not to see your family, to spend time with them, but out of safety, an abundance of caution, as many people say, I have started to accept. I have reconciled myself to the fact that I'm not going to see my family very soon. You should know that reconcile is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, we're going to drop the E and then add ing to form reconciling. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by just adding D, since this verb already ends with an E. When I say the base verb, reconcile, hopefully you hear an L sound, right? That's a voiced sound, so our past tense ending is going to make a D sound. Reconciled, reconciled. Let's take a look at some phrasal verbs. And I think you're most likely to hear reconcile with. So we're going to talk about that, even though the meanings are totally different than what we just discussed, right? So if you hear reconcile with and you hear the names of people or groups of people, then you should know that that meaning is restoring a relationship, right? Here is an example sentence. She reconciled with her husband after they both attended counseling. Right? So maybe they had separated, but now they have decided, yes, we're going to continue to be married and be together. If you hear two things being discussed, you might hear reconcile with be separated, and those two things appearing before and after the with. So we're reconciling something with another thing. And that meaning, again, goes back to checking one financial account to make sure it is accurate or matches another account. So here is an example sentence. We reconciled the bank statement with our records. Kind of comparing the two things to make sure we have the same numbers in both places. Today, we're going to do one more practice with active versus passive voice. We've been looking at this in a series of videos this week, and you may know by now that we're starting our active voice sentences with the person or the thing that's responsible for the action. Think of this as the subject, right? So I have two example sentences. Joe has mowed the lawn. Mary has made signs. And now I'm going to switch them into passive. So what I'm going to do is start my sentence with the person or the thing that has been acted on. So in the first sentence, it's the lawn. That is what received the action of mowing. I would say, the lawn has been mowed. And I could include by Joe, but I don't have to. Okay? In the second sentence, the signs were the thing that has been acted on. So I'm going to start my second sentence in the passive voice with signs. Signs have been made. And again, I could say by Mary, but I don't have to include it. We tend to use the passive voice when we don't know who is responsible for doing the particular action. And sometimes it could also be done out of kindness, right? Instead of saying this person did this bad thing, you might say, someone has done this not so good thing, right? And a second reason that someone might use the passive voice is that we really want emphasis or the focus to be on the thing or the person that's been acted on. Right? So that person who's doing the action, maybe it's just not that important. So today we'll look at some sentences using Reconcile. We're going to focus on the present perfect, and we'll do a sentence in active voice and then switch that sentence into passive voice. You may remember to make an affirmative sentence in the active voice with the present perfect, I need two parts. I'm going to use have or has, depending on my subject, and then I'll use the participle form of the verb. So let's take a look at an example sentence. Some ballots won't be counted until county auditors have reconciled records to make sure voters only voted once. So we've got that county auditors have reconciled there. If I want to instead focus my sentence by starting on the thing that's receiving the action, here, the records, right? That's where the verb reconcile is focusing on. What I'm going to do to make present perfect passive voice is use have been reconciled. And if it was singular, I would use has been reconciled. So here's an example sentence. Some ballots won't be counted until records have been reconciled to make sure voters only voted once. Okay? Difficult sentence, but it is something that we've heard a lot about in the news and seen recently. For our negative sentences, both in active and passive voice, we need to insert not either after have or has. So here is an example. Accountants haven't reconciled the company's bank accounts recently. Okay. Passive voice. The company's bank accounts haven't been reconciled recently. So there we don't know who is responsible for the action. If I want to make a yes or no question in the active voice in present perfect, I'm going to start with have or has, then I'll have my subject, and then the participle form of the verb. Have government officials reconciled the data? Okay. If I want to make my question in passive voice, again, I'll start with have or has, then I'm going to have the object, the thing receiving the action or the thing being acted upon, then been and the participle. Has the data been reconciled? Has it been checked for accuracy? Okay. Lastly, we're going to look at some words that are related to our verb reconcile. And the first is the noun form, reconciliation. Just like our verb, it can have a couple different meanings. One possible meaning for this noun is the restoration of friendly relations. So again, that idea of restoring, going back to being friends. So here is an example sentence with that meaning. There was no chance of reconciliation between the warring groups. So that might be a sentence out of a historical account. Again, you might see this word as you're reading in history and political science. The second noun definition that we're going to look at for reconciliation goes back to that meaning with financial accounts. So making the financial accounts consistent, or kind of checking to make sure they are consistent. So an example of that usage is, there will be a weekly reconciliation of the accounts. Another related word is the adjective reconcilable. It means capable or able of being reconciled. So again, this could go back to our verb meaning of restoring friendly relationships. It could be connected to that settling of disagreements. So here is an example that actually comes from a headline for an article. Are Americans' political differences reconcilable? So here I think the meaning of settling a disagreement or a dispute would be best connected to this. And this leads to our last word, which is also an adjective. It's irreconcilable. And this prefix IR means not. It's really common to see with other base words that start with R. So irreconcilable means representing a finding or a point of view that are so different from one another that they cannot be made compatible. Another way of thinking of this, not capable of being reconciled. And I'm afraid it might be a sad connection, but the way we might hear this word, irreconcilable, is connected to the topic of divorce. And that's my example sentence. The couple's divorce filing asked the court to dissolve the marriage due to irreconcilable differences. So what this is meaning is there are so many different beliefs and ideas between the two married individuals that they will never be able to be compatible or settle those differences. And that is the reason they have asked the court to end their marriage. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.